Good evening, everybody. Warm welcome. Thank you very much for turning out on a chilly evening. A special warm welcome to our candidates who've given up their time on what I'm sure is quite a busy period for them. As someone said very recently in the local press, one of our councillors said that what was happening in Stanton at the moment, in Erewash, this is the most significant event to ever happen in this area, and we would wholeheartedly agree with that. It's so important that we feel that with an election looming, we need to know exactly, or you need to know exactly where your prospective candidates stand on this particular issue. What I'm going to do, I'm going to ask each candidate to start off by giving us a 3-minute opening statement about their position on the Stanton site and the regeneration.
And I think the real target is the Stanton site itself and what is proposed at the Stanton site, why it's wrong and why the planning system we currently have in our country favours large companies and the views of central government at the expense of our local communities. If we look at the Stanton site, it's driven by two things mainly. Firstly, profit from the commercial development of the housing and also the Nottingham housing plan. Neither of these objectives really benefit either Erewash or our local communities, whereas if we are looking at planning in the region, those are the main things which should be taken into account. The idea that we should have a a private developer in charge of such a huge building site, which, as you say, is a town the size of San Diego potentially, which is situated in the middle of nowhere with no access routes, is quite plainly bonkers. Erewash already has lots of housing that has been bought in the area, which is good quality housing. But what Erewash really needs is more industrial development, and it also needs affordable housing as well. And so if we have a site like this, these are the sort of things that should take priority.
I think the first thing I want to say is whoever is elected as the MP for Erewash, this issue it should be at the top of the list. It is, without a doubt, the key issue that will define this constituency, our constituency, for the next generation to come. And whoever wins the seat must show the necessary leadership to take forward the concerns of local residents and present them, back them, and push for what is right for this area. Because if there are 7,000 or similar number of houses built, once that's done, I know it goes without saying, but we can't turn the clock back, we can't have our land back again.
I think, and I have no dogmatic view on this, but I would like to see a mix of some housing. I don't want a massive housing estate put there. I also don't want to see a massive industrial estate. We've got factories and units that are lying empty within the borough. So if the development is to put industrial places there, I would like to see that with some assurances that companies are in place to go into them, existing companies or new enterprises.
We've already seen the effects of very large-scale housing developments in this area, like Sinfin, where those are close to a city. And we can imagine that in this local area, where it's away from the city, these problems will be even worse with the access routes, etc.
Now, there's going to be a degree of consensus, I think, in fact, between the three candidates tonight in terms of our primary positions. But let me make mine absolutely clear. This development, 7,000 houses is too many. The issues for me are size and access, okay? If you go to the Green Squeeze website, the red route, if I can put it like that, coming up from the A52 right through the Green Belt, it is wrong. I can say that without hesitation. I would do everything I could if I were your MP to stop such a route from being progressed.
Finally, I'd like to come on to the planning, and one of the reasons why we have problems with sites like this is that planning is mainly delivered centrally, in that the final arbiter is the Secretary of State, who probably knows nothing about this area. The Liberal Democrat view is that we should have a complete change to the planning system, and we have a policy document on this in which we would change entirely the way in which planning takes place, and place at the heart of the planning process the local communities like round here, so that we have a proper plan, we know what's in it, and we can argue against sites like Stanton on the basis of a properly conceived local plan that benefits local communities.
Surprisingly, I agree with quite a lot of what... why is Erewash coming under the Greater Nottingham auspice? I don't know. Is Nottingham going to expand into Derby? Is it going to be one huge conurbation? I certainly want to see that. Why does Stanton fit into Greater Nottingham's plans? You know, it's nearer to Derby than it is to Nottingham. It's in Derbyshire. I don't like the whole thing of becoming part of Greater Nottingham.
So I can see a number of positives from that point of view of regarding Stanton as an industrial type area where we want to develop jobs. It is an ideal site for it. It is a very large site. It has a history of that. A lot of the land is perhaps polluted and unsuitable for houses, and those sorts of area would be suitable for those sorts of businesses. So I think going down that line, we could make a very good case for saying, yes, that's the sort of development we want to see in Erewash, and that would benefit Erewash. What I don't see is that we need a housing development of that size, which would cause such an enormous problem with the access roads. And the more we can have as an industrial development, as an integrated development that is fully planned, fully thought out beforehand, and not just driven by commercial ideas and the Nottingham plan itself, the better it will be for us in Erewash, and the more useful development we can have in Erewash, and the less impact we can have on things like access roads and such like.
Now, I take a similar view to Green Squeeze, and in fact I think to the two other candidates here tonight, and that is that, you know, there has to be a balance with any development. You know, we're not saying don't do anything. I'm not saying don't do anything with Stanton Ironworks, but it's what happens there. It has to be measured, it has to be balanced, it has to have the proper infrastructure, it has to have the proper access, there have to be bus routes, there has to be schools, there has to be the green spaces, and there has to be a mixture of housing and jobs. That, if I'm your MP, that's what I'll be fighting for. It's the MP's job to listen to the local residents who are really vocal on this issue already, take those concerns forward and show the leadership that will be required to tackle this. It's going to be a long fight, it's going to be a difficult one, but it's one I won't shy away from if I'm your MP. Thank you.
So these issues in making sure that we have an appropriate layered system of government so that we can work at appropriate levels of government is very important, and this brings us back to the Stanton site, in that at present the planning regulations such as they are not decided at a local level. Once the inquiry goes ahead, a decision will be made which will be based to some extent on the amount of money that people can throw at various arguments. And if the company who are putting forward the proposal don't like that argument, what can happen then is that the final decision then rests with the Secretary of State. It doesn't rest at a local level at all. And this is why I was waving this planning document earlier on, because the Liberal Democrats have put forward this planning paper which has been debated by our conference to say this is Liberal Democrat policy, and what we want to do is to actually change the planning system so it becomes appropriate for local levels, so that we do actually have a local say on this issue, not a say that is dictated by central government, unless it's an issue that is considered to be of national importance. And I do not see the Stanton site as an issue of national importance.